my name is Bill Amirault, and I want to invite you here to Career Clarity and Purpose in this live and recorded event today. My panel of 14 experts are revealing their strategies to provide career clarity aligned with your true purpose. Were your life and career impacted by COVID? Frankly, I don't know anybody's who was not. Were you downsized, right-sized, reorg, rift, let go, or otherwise separated in ways that didn't align with what you wanted? For what it's worth, I've experienced all of those, some of them more than once. Or maybe you're part of the Great Resignation. You realized consciously or made a decision a while ago, and COVID just solidified it, that there's something else out there better for you. Well, I'm happy to welcome my guest here this afternoon, Alex Freund, who is also known as the Landing Expert. And he had a very interesting corporate career before he became a career coach, and we'll talk about this. And he's actually more of an interview coach than a career coach. We were having this conversation online, Alex, related to your background and how it is that you've specialized in it, and then what that means for your clients and how you interact with them going forward. But before we go a whole lot further into that, I would just like to give the listening and viewing audience a little bit of understanding of your background and the things that you bring to the party and how your career transitions made what you are today. Oops, and I have to unmute you there, so hold on a second.
Okay, Bill, thank you so much. First of all, thanks for unmuting me. It will be very difficult for me to make a presentation just talking to myself, so thank you. The second thanks goes to you for inviting me. I feel so very honored. I mean that I feel distinguished with all my other friends. What I appreciate less is that you put me after Lynn. I mean, how can I, Lynn is a giant and I'm a midget. So I don't know how I will come off, but I will do my best. I will do my best.
I'm confident that the perspective that you have will directly complement what Lynn has been saying over the last hour. So
okay,
go away. Yeah. So again, okay. Your background before doing what you're doing right now would be really helpful. We had this conversation the other day.
I think I have a kind of a unique, a little unusual background. I can share very briefly that I arrived to the United States January 6. By the way, January 6 is a big day in America. You know that.
That's right.
January 6, 1971, precisely 50 years before the big hoopla that happened in Washington.
That's right.
I came to the United States because I had a desire to enroll in an Ivy League school. Prior to that, I lived in the state of Israel. I was working in the hospitality field. I worked at the Tel Aviv Hilton, etc. And I decided one day I need to expand my career, and the best place would be to get an academic degree from the best university in this field in the world. The Cornell Hotel School is equivalent to Harvard if you're a lawyer, equivalent to MIT if you're an engineer. It is a top school in the world. So I essentially took a Greyhound bus and subsequently a cab to take me to the campus. I walked into the hotel because half of the building is a hotel, half of the building is a school. And the receptionist, the front desk clerk said, "Can I help you?" And my sentence was, "Yes, I would like to be a student here." This is how I started in January of 1971. So subsequently, I don't know how they accepted me. I will never understand why, because I did not have money to pay for it. I did not speak a good English, and I was not a stellar student. But they accepted me, and I'm very grateful. And I finished the 4-year program in 3.5 years. I don't know how, but I worked extremely hard. And I got a job in Rochester, New York with a Holiday Inn. It was terrific. It was wonderful. But after 6 months, I resigned with anger because I did not sign up for a 73-hour-a-week diet of working.
Right.
And at that time, my daughter was only months old, and my wife in Rochester, New York with snow, and the car was with me because I had to commute to work and she was stranded. So I said, this is not going to go on. And I resigned.
Mhm.
It was a great feeling. It was so wonderful. But now 6 months, I'm looking for employment. Easy to resign. Getting a job was very difficult. My specialty was food and beverage. So I found myself 8 years in the healthcare field. I worked as a director of the dietary in various hospitals and anywhere from Denver, Colorado to Poughkeepsie, New York to upstate New York. And so for 8 years, I was the person in charge of feeding patients, doctors, guests, etc. And after 8 years, I found myself a job in Lower Manhattan with an insurance company, which was absolutely fantastic. I was there 2.5 years, at which point they had the first ever layoff. And I was the last one in. My boss, 27 years with a company, he stayed.
Mhm.
My next position was in a next industry, which is a utility. It's called Con Edison in New York City.
Mhm.
I worked at Con Edison for 2 years, 23 months, almost 2 years. Bad culture. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Next position, I found myself at Honeywell in Morristown, New Jersey. And an interesting story is somebody, a friend of mine that knew how unhappy I am, from the Sunday New York Times found an ad that they are looking for somebody in their food service organization. And I applied in a very ugly way. All I said, I took a page from I have here, something from the desk of, do you guys remember?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
And I took exactly this, a page like this, and I said, dear sir, attached is my resume. I can be found at this and this phone number. And I put it on my way to work in the United States Postal Service.
Right.
3 days later, they called me and said, we would like to talk with you. I was surprised. They called me in and they hired me soon thereafter. I spent my best 15 years at that organization. I bloomed there. I was promoted. Honestly, out of 15 years, I can count on one hand the number of days that I wasn't very happy.
Yep.
After 15 years, I said, I'm not willing to work for an organization that is run by GE. General Electric wanted to buy Honeywell at that time. I couldn't stand that Jack Welch's style of management. I picked up the phone and I called, really cold call, a company, a pharmaceutical company in Bridgewater, New Jersey. And I spoke with the vice president, just cold call. And he said, well, we are not ready to hire yet. We need to have internal candidates first. That was the first news. They have an opening. They interviewed me, and soon thereafter, I got the job.
Which is great.
Shortly thereafter, I was let go because we had some internal changes, etc. Within 3 weeks, I find myself in Princeton, New Jersey, interviewing with the senior vice president, reporting to the CEO of an organization that has 370,000 employees. The name was Tyco International. 20 minutes interview, he offered me the job. I thought my head is spinning. That's a big position. When you report, when between the CEO of a company of the size of 370,000 employees, between that person and you, there's only one person. It was significantly big position. 20 minutes interview, I couldn't believe it. And he offered me the job on the spot. It lasted six months. And I was booted out. And here I am, 60 years old. And I said, oh, wow, what am I doing now? I'm 60 years old. What am I going to do? They provided me 9 months of outplacement services. And after 9 months, my coach said, Alex, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I need help. I hired a career marketing firm. Big mistake. I paid $70 to $100 to get for that service. And I was with them at the end. My coach said, "This is your last meeting with me. I'm leaving." I said, "Okay, great. But what am I going to do now?" Well,
Mhm.
talk to the owner. I walked into the owner's office. I said, "Alex, I have an idea. How would you like to take your coach's position?" I said, "Wow, that's a surprise. That's a surprise." And I said, "Give me a chance to think about it. I'll be here tomorrow." I was in his office next day, and I said, "I accept."
Mhm.
So they gave me an office. I bought pictures, flowers in. After 2 weeks, I resigned.
Oh,
Why?
wow. Okay,
I resigned. Why? People
go
that
ahead.
know me can attest to it. I'm a very honest, straightforward individual. I'm not a crook. I'm not a thief. They were. They
Wow.
were. They
Mhm.
took on people that paid a ton of money. I paid 7,200. Other people paid 15,000. And they
Mm.
threatened them to be sued.
Right.
I don't want to be a part of the company that's going to be under scrutiny of various organizations, what they do. So
Mhm.
I opted not to work because I wanted to protect myself. I don't want to sit in a prison because I'm a part of an organization that's not straight. Great,
Yes.
again, resign, what now? And I went to networking and I help people, that's my nature. And people said, "Alex, you're so good at this. Why don't you become a career coach?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm used for big paychecks. What are you talking about, career coach?" They said, "Alex, if you want to be a career coach, you need to continue. And we know you, you have a big heart, you want to help everybody. But Alex, you have a problem." I said, "What is it?" Said, "You need to say to your next client, I'm happy to help you, but I expect to be paid." Said, "How can I do that? I don't have any qualifications. I don't have any diploma. I have nothing." "Alex, did you hear what we said? You have to tell your next customer you're happy to help, but I expect to be paid."
Right.
Oh my God, it was so difficult, but I did it. You know what the response was? Of course. That was 16 years ago. Somebody was willing to pay me. Since then, I have 1,300 paying customers,
That's great.
and I'm still doing it 7 days a week, and I love every minute of it. So I gave you kind of a synopsis. Thanks for allowing me to share this.
Well, the big part of that that comes through is that even though you were telling yourself, I don't deserve to be paid for this, I don't have the credentials or whatever qualifications that you felt were necessary, you certainly had not only the ability to do it, but you had the experience with all the different things that you had been through. And you had been a quote unquote client of an outplacement firm, whether it went well or not, you at least knew. And this is what happened when I went through outplacement back in 2003. I said, if I ever do this, I'll do it very, very differently than these folks are doing it. And you had that perspective, so you knew what the client was looking for. And then the other thing that came up in our conversation earlier is you didn't want to be like an all, like covering every aspect of career coaching. So you intentionally, I'm using this word, landed on the niche of the landing expert and interviewing, negotiating in terms of your area of expertise. And you're very well represented on social media. I've seen you present probably 7 or 8 times. So you're out there, you're in front of people. Whether or not they have their cameras off these days or not is not something you can control. But how did you get from that, like, the broad, let's just say, umbrella of career coaching into focusing on interviews? And I've seen you conduct mock interviews in front of groups, and it's very good. So, and because you have this very kind of low key, man on the street way of saying something that hits you as a dagger, as an interviewer. And that's exactly what you want to be doing as a coach, because if you can prep your client for the hardest interview question that they may come up with, they're going to win. They're going to succeed. So again, how did you get to that point?
Okay, I will, but allow me to say the following. I had 2 personality traits that helped me do what I do. One,
Okay.
people tell me this all the time: "Alex, you are born an engineer." I never went to school of engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very organized, very systematic, and this is something people often need.
Mm-hmm.
They come, figuratively, I say, before COVID, when they came to my office, I feel that they ring the doorbell and they walk in with a bucket of pebbles. They come to my office and they said, Alex, here it is. They take the bucket and they pour it on my desk. They said, oh, these are purple and these are big. Let's put it in this corner. Oh, these are pink. Let's put it here. These are small. I sorted the things out for them in their lives. They walked away from here feeling they have some order in their lives.
Right.
Some people, they have so much going, they are not able to see the trees because of the forest. So I help them. This is my engineering in me. I'm very organized. My house is organized. My computer is organized. My life is very organized. The personality trait that I have, and people told me this all the time. Alex, you were born to be a teacher. But I want to say I never taught. I did teach for 10 and a half years at the Princeton Adult School, and I see Dev is with us here. Dev was many years ago one of my students.
Ah, okay.
So, yes, I did some teaching, and my wife occasionally, she's in the other room, and I work with my clients. She said, Alex, you are an angel. You have so much patience. And that's true. I can say the same thing 10 times until you say, Alex, now I got it. So having patience and be able to relate to people, that's a very important trait that a career coach should have. So now, let me answer to your question. How did I move from the broad career coaching field into the interview preparation field? Well, that was by design. And let me tell you why I gravitated toward that. In the medical field, if you have an eye problem, where do you go? You go to an ophthalmologist. If you have a kidney problem, nephrologist. If you have a bone problem, osteopath. And, so there are specialties. So I said, wait a second, career coaching is too broad. There are people who don't know what they want. There are people that need to mature. There are people that are too old. There are people, let other people do that. I want to be viewed and branding and marketing myself. I want people to immediately say, Alex Freund, oh, he is an interview coach. And I divorced myself. I would say nowadays I do probably 5% or less career coaching. And in that 5%, it includes salary negotiation. Clearly, 95% of my clients seek me out because they have an interview coming up. Actually, yesterday, I have a resume here of an individual. This individual just called me. He's a policeman. I never had a policeman before.
Okay.
Now, I said, so why are you looking for an interview? He said, I'm ready for a promotion. I need to go in front of 8 people in my town, and they will interview me. I'm very good at what I'm doing. I'm not good sitting in front of the mayor and the town clerk and all this and answering to their questions. Alex, can you please help me? I said, it's my pleasure. I said, how did you find me? I always ask that question.
Of course.
I Googled career interview preparation in central New Jersey, and he found me. I'm doing something right. They found me.
Right. So again, the transition that you spoke about, starting on January 6th in 1971 in Ithaca, and I've been in Ithaca in January and played baseball there in early April. It ain't fun. It's just cold. From that till 51, almost 52 years later, where you're at a point where you're known as the interview expert, the landing expert, and which is great. I want to kind of go back to kind of the theme of what this day is about, which is creating career clarity. And what I'm gonna make an assumption, and then I'd like you to just fill in the blanks, is that what you're doing is you're confirming somebody's career clarity as they go into the interview to make sure that they're the right person for the job. And how have you worked with others to help in that sense?
Okay, very, very clear to me. A career coach is not going to tell you what to do. A good career coach is good at asking the right questions. I don't ever tell people, oh, you should be a piano player. You should be a this. Never, never,
Right.
never. I ask questions, and at the end, they come to the conclusion what they want to do. Ed Samuel said a little earlier, he talked very eloquently about various instances. You know
Right.
what? I'm asking good questions. I never tell somebody what you should do, but I'm bringing information. My job is not to sell. I hate selling. I hate it with compassion. I love marketing. Marketing in my book is not selling. Every so often people in America say marketing equals selling. No, marketing is not equal selling. Marketing is educating.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring information. I want to educate people what's available out there, how to go about it. I'm not a jack of all trades. If you don't know what you want to do to go in the future, I perhaps can send you to someone that's their specialty. If
Mm-hmm.
you need a resume or LinkedIn profile that you want to be successful, Lynn would be a person. Again, I send people to the right people because I'm exclusively in the interview preparation area.
Mm-hmm. And give a couple of examples. I know that you had mentioned this not when we spoke in the last few days, but that you have a very strong presence with expats who are interviewing from outside the U.S. for positions inside the U.S. And and just some examples of what your interview coaching has meant for them and what the results have been.
Yeah, again, I see people, the youngest client of mine was 16 and a half years old.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest was 82 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the 82 years old, why do you want to change jobs? Alex, I'm so bored, I need challenge. Wow, the 82 to say, I need challenge, this is so wonderful. I just got 2 days ago a new client, United Arab Emirates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they are 9 hours ahead of us. Okay, so we need to find the right time. So, I hate to do this at 2 o'clock in the morning, by the way.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I get people from all over. One of the, as you know, I love making presentations, and I no longer make presentations on the same topics than other people do. I've done that. I'm tired of that. I don't want to do LinkedIn. I don't want, there are people that are way better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I do presentation on different topics. For example, a recent topic of mine was to understand the culture. And that's a very, very interesting topic, and people don't give enough attention to it. Don't think that if you live in California and you talk to someone in Iowa, that they speak the same language. Yes, it's called English, but let me tell you, it's very different. I lived in New Hampshire, and let me tell you, the people in New Hampshire are Americans like you and I. We have the same passport. We use the same dollar, but I want to tell you, they are thinking differently and they are acting differently. When
Yes.
I moved to New Hampshire, the HR director said, she's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. She said, Alex, let me tell you something about people in New Hampshire. 2 things you need to remember. Think small and don't change my life.
Yeah.
I said, ha, 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 that's so funny. It wasn't funny, it was a reality.
Right.
So one of the things when I get people now from literally different parts of the country, I take into consideration people in the Midwest think differently than we on the East Coast, very differently.
Mm-hmm.
People in California are different than us. So yes, I take that into consideration. Actually, the book that was my teacher about the culture is this one. Totally amazing book. I found it in a garage sale for 50 cents. And once I bought it, I couldn't stop, and I developed a presentation.
That's great.
Yeah. Another book, which is my Bible, I don't know how many people know this, is this book.
New Passages. Okay.
Yeah, I read this book about 30 years ago. It was called Passages. This lady, Gail Sheehy, was very well known.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book called Passages about 30 years ago. She talks about people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 80s.
Mhm.
People behave differently at different ages. She rewrote the book 20 years later, and it's called The New Passages. She updated it. So I read this book. You know, when I work with people that are 65, I behave and talk differently than my recent college graduate. It's
Sure.
not the same language. It's very, very different. So I need to adapt my communication style to their age group. I learn about it, I understand them, and I can relate very well to them.
Which is great. And, you know, your comment about New Hampshire being different, I've had the good fortune of traveling to all 50 states and living in 10. I grew up about 5 miles from the New Hampshire border, but which is still kind of suburban Boston. But if you go further out, I'm not sure what town you were in.
Dover,
Oh,
New Hampshire.
okay. So you were in the middle of nowhere, relatively, and understood. Don't interrupt my life and think small. But you know, certainly you overcame that. Yeah, just any other thoughts or examples about how you'd recommend, you know, the key aspects of what you do related to interview coaching. You know, and I've done a lot of that, but not nearly as much as you. So I'm really looking
Well,
forward to your perspective here.
Bill, I have to admit, it was an evolution for me. I started, it's like a gem that is polished and polished and polished and polished. And
Yeah.
after 16 years, I have a good product, unquestionably. The comments that I receive, the kudos I receive verbally and in writing attest to the fact. I know what sells, I know what they need. You know, I have a program, every time I meet with a client, it's always 90 minutes. I know precisely where we start, where we end. It's very automatic.
And it sounds like it's very organized too, to use a word you referred to earlier, and systematic and organized from an interview standpoint is really key, because a lot of people are good talkers, but they're not good interviewers because they're not organized enough in their thoughts. Yeah. So
when we start, I review with them something I have right here. You know, there's some terminology, but again, what if you ask me a kind of as a friend, Alex, what do you do? Essentially, in my mind, I have two answers to that. First of all, I help you better communicate your value in the future to the next employer. So I'm in the business of communication. Second, I am in the behavioral modification business.
as needed. Yes.
Why am I saying it?
Yep.
And I always say this to people. I hope you will tolerate me torturing you with a smile on my face. I said, because I will make you smile. I will make you move. I will make you, they will remember you visually way longer than auditory.
Right.
I ask you, Bill, do you remember a conversation you had 3 days ago with someone? What was this about? You probably will not be able to tell me anything. But if I say, Bill, can you share with me something that happened in your childhood? You were 15-year-old. Was there anything, any event of importance? You can go on for half an hour. Wait a second. How come you remember stuff that goes back 15 years? Yet when I said, what did you talk about 3 days ago? You don't remember. I bring this point into my teaching. That people remember visually way longer than auditory.
Yes.
Let's bring that into the interview. You will be compared to other 3, 4, 5, 7 people that they will interview you. How will they remember you? Because at the end of the process, which takes, let's say, 5 weeks, they will not remember, oh, Bill was candidate number 3. It was 18 days ago. Question number 6, he answered it this way. No way.
Right.
But if somebody says, which one is Bill? Can you describe Bill? Oh, yeah, this is this nice guy. He has high energy. He wakes up in the morning before being, I don't know, 12, 14 hours on Zoom. He was doing his fitness activity. So I can talk a lot about you, but what you say 3 days from now, I will forget.
Right.
This is a part of the interview.
That's great. And it's directing, again, I'm I'm going from what my experience, both as somebody being interviewed and as somebody who has coached many of my clients in interviewing, is how to direct what they bring, who they are, as what Donna said, if you happen to see her a couple hours ago. How do you bring who you are into the space of what the company or the hiring manager needs so that you can resolve their issues? How do you address that with your clients in terms of interviews?
Okay, so let's start with the basics.
Mhm.
And every client of mine hears this. The interview is not about you. The interview is about them, and the interview is about their problem. So your number one objective is find out ASAP what is their problem.
Mhm.
Because they will hire you because they have a problem and you are their solution.
Mhm.
This is how we start. Now, please repeat the question again. I went off on a tangent. Repeat the question that you just asked me.
Yeah, just how do you direct your client into exactly what you're saying? Is it like, when they've figured out what the problem is, then what? Or they've put the problem on the table, I should say. Then what? How do you handle that?
Very easy, very easy. That's what I do every day.
Right.
Once they are revealing the issue they have,
Mhm.
then you address that with an example from your past experience, which ended successfully. And when I say successfully, not because you say it was successful, but others. What you say, they don't believe it. Actually, I have a sign here, which I show very often to my clients. Let me show it to you. Can you read?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, so
Yep.
I teach people how to talk in a way that they are believable. How do you do that? You always bring somebody else to validate what you want to say. It's called third-party validation.
Mhm.
If I say, Bill, as you know, I live in New Jersey. Bill, I want to tell you something. I'm the best career coach there is. If I say that, what you say, Alex, stop. You're full of yourself. I don't believe you. How about if I say this? Bill, I told you I live in New Jersey. I'm happy to share with you some news. In the last 11 days, 2 of my clients received a job.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. Yep.
then perhaps you say, oh, perhaps this guy is good.
Mhm.
Okay, so always bring in an example validated by a third party.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why, you can state it, but when you can support it, it becomes, like you said, why should I believe you? Which is excellent. I'm just thinking out loud here in terms of other aspects of, again, creating career clarity aligned with your purpose. If you could speak to, an example, either you personally or with others that you've worked with, where the clarity wasn't there. And I know you say you send people to, send clients to others at that point, but I'm sure you have some examples where you can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am reminded it was way beyond 10 years. I met with a lady. She told me she's 64 years old. She had a great career, but she is now in chemotherapy. And she's looking to get back to work.
Okay.
My style of coaching is very direct. I never insult anyone. But let me tell you, I'm not ambiguous. That's the last word you can say about me. I'm not ambiguous. I will tell you directly. I will, in a nice, polite way, but you get honesty and integrity out of me. I told her, are you sure you want to go back to work? Look, you came to me, you hired me to help you. I have to tell you anything but my honest opinion. I think you should not go to work. You have to admit you are 64. You just went through chemo. You are not ready to go back to work based on the story that you told me and based on the research that you've done about the future. I said, you may not like my answer, but look, honesty and integrity you get out of me. She said, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And she left my office. I used to do them in person in my office here. 2 hours later, she called me. Alex, I don't know how to thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to thank you. She said, I was so afraid of this. I was so afraid of this. but you helped me make the decision. Alex, I still don't know how to thank you. It was such a valuable meeting with you. Again, thank you so much. So yes, honesty and integrity is what I put on the table. They may not like it sometimes, but you know what? If you pay me for hearing my opinion, I will tell you in a nice way, polite way, never insulting, but you'll hear the truth.
Well, what you did, and this is critical, is you set her free or liberated her from her own preconceived notion that she had to go back to work when health is always going to be first.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to ask a professional athlete to go on the field with a broken leg. And if she's just recovering from chemo, you know, her ability to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week would be severely compromised. And you being kindly forthright, obviously was exactly what she needed to hear. And I can only imagine when she went home and either thought about it or shared it with one of her loved ones, wait, I don't have to work. This is, you know, just, it was something she hadn't even considered until you brought it up. So, which is great.
Well, I want to add, if I may,
Yeah.
a part of the people that come to me, they are more advanced in age. Let's put it that way.
Right.
The conversation is very, very different. And when appropriate, when my judgment says so, we start talking about the future. It's called retirement.
Yes.
We are kind of easing into that topic. I don't do this very often, but when I notice that this is a situation, we start talking about that, not so much about how to answer interview questions, but let's talk about your future, Bill. You told me you're 63 years old and you know, you plan for retirement. So let's talk about it. So what makes me smile is this. Several years ago, that was at least 10 years ago, I happened to be on the phone with a guy that many of you know. His name is Dick Boats. You guys know who he is?
Yes.
What color is your parachute? I don't know how I ended up talking with him on the phone. And he says, Alex, what's your address? So I said, oh, my address is alex@landingexpert.com. No, Alex, where do you live? What's your physical address?
Right.
Oh, this is my address. I said, Bill, Dick, why do you need that? Alex, I want to send you a book. 2 weeks later, I received this book.
Oh, nice. For retirement. Yes. Great.
An amazing, amazing book. He sent, and you know, I read it, and it's just about an amazing, amazing book. I mean, he is a master. I mean, for 40 years, he published this. And also I read, this topic is close to my heart. Why? Because of my age, because of my status. There is another book that I recommend. It's funny. It's good. Okay. But
it looks like a comfortable bike seat on that little drawing there. Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's The Joy of Not Working, but Ernie Zelinsky.
Okay.
It's a great book, but I have several other. This is what I just pulled here half an hour ago. And so, but we talk about retirement. So let me briefly share with you what I know about retirement. You know, when you are 40, 50 years old or whatever, you always say, when I retire, and you use that word like it's a target, I need to reach that point.
Right.
And then the age comes and you retire. Here's what's happening. You pick up the phone, you email to all your friends, Alex, I have great news for you. I actually retired December 31st. And you talk with so much passion. You waited for these 28 years. And now you reach that point. Now, the next 3 months or a year, I call it a vacation time. You feel like, I don't have to get up at 5 in the morning. I don't have a boss to report to. I don't have to do, you know, Sunday night, still the spreadsheets and so forth. I do whatever I want. Why? I am retired. So you feel a euphoric feeling. This lasts 3 months to a year. The next, when this ends, when this euphoria ends, you get into the next stage. The next stage is a negative stage. This is when depression sets in. Vacation was wonderful, but nobody calls me. Why
Yes.
am I here? Why do I have to get up in the morning? It's a negative period. Once you get through this negative period, the next phase is a phase that you feel like, I am an accountant, I'm a CPA. I don't want to do that. I always loved playing piano. So let me hire somebody so he can teach me piano. Or I love trombone and I want to play in a concert, whatever, in a band or whatever.
Sure.
Okay, so people move from something very different. They were accountant, now they're a dancer. They are, an instructor, now they're a plumber. Something very different. This is the next stage in retirement. This takes them to later age. The next phase is a phase that you feel, the world was so good to me. I feel I need to give back. So you volunteer, no pay, you just give back. You go to SCORE. You are an advisor on SCORE. You go to non-profit organization. You feel like I had a good life. I need to give. I need to share. When this stage ends, here comes another stage. If it's Tuesday, it's an eye doctor. Oh, it's Wednesday, that's a chiropractor. So there comes a stage in your life that the calendar dictates what you're going to do. And you go from one doctor to the other to the other. And that's a kind of a final stage. And then you live until whatever. So these are the various stages. And I openly discuss this with people. I want people to be prepared. Don't fall into retirement. Plan your retirement.
100%. And I've asked this question to many people. Being on the back nine of life, I've had many of my peers, contemporaries, colleagues who have either recently retired or are considering it, in the very near future. And my only question to them is this: it's actually 4 questions that all wrapped into one. After you end your traditional working career in whatever way that is, and some people don't want to end it right away, they will, continue on a part-time basis just because they want to keep their hands in it, and because they're a mentor and a reference at that point to anybody that needs to be trained in whatever role they had. But the 4 questions go like this: what do you want to do, become, accomplish, or experience before you're in hospice? And I don't just mean, work-wise, but in all different areas of your life. Because until you ask those questions, and what I do is I provoke people to look at the question, not from today looking to hospice, but from hospice looking back to today. What do you want to look back on and say, assuming you still have your wits in hospice, what are you going to look back on and say, I am so glad I made the decision to, and whatever that is, take this course of action in the years that I still have left. A good friend who was on this Zoom call earlier this morning, he's written a couple of books. He's a retired J&J executive. And I know him through a Bible study. We've had several different conversations about this topic. And his father is not in hospice, but he's still living on his own, but he's in a place where he can't do what he used to. He's 96. Okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and my friend is 73. And he said to me, I was visiting my father the other day. We had a great conversation. We had lunch and all this. And my father looked at me and he said, well, what are you doing with your life? What do you want to do? He says, well, I'm working on the outline of this book. And he said, my father looked at me and said, you better get cracking. You don't know how long you have. And it really did hit home with him. And I know that he's very proactive in terms of that, but it's all about, what are your new destinations? What are your new goals, or, things that you want to put on your bucket list? And that's an easy, like the checklist thing, but what you become is much more encompassing. So I know you're having a plan, having a goal is important. So yes.
You need to be happy. And I said this, friends of mine heard me saying, I always say this: I'm the happiest person in the state of New Jersey. I'm so happy. I'm really, honestly, very happy where I am with my life. Thank God.
Right.
I'm healthy. So is my family. I do what I absolutely love. I thank God. I don't, it's nice to be paid for by my work. I don't need it. It's nice, but I don't need it. So I don't have financial pressures. So life is good. What can I tell you?
No, that's great. That's really good. And I'm glad that we've had the chance to share this time together. And you providing your perspective on all the different issues that we spoke about. I will just say to the folks who are listening or watching, any specific questions that you want to pose to Alex, and if you do so in the chat, we will take it from there. I don't know if I have any takers, but at least we put it out there.
Well, let me point my finger to Dev. Dev, I haven't heard you talk. Why don't you ask a question? I know in my class you always talk.
Hold on a second. Let me allow participants to unmute themselves. And Dev, go ahead.
Alex, this is not a class, really. It's a flow in one direction from you to us.
It's not so nice to hear from you and to see you.
No, I'm glad I am trying again to get back to my career of intended career. And again, in search of my improvements, here I am.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Anyone else? Great job, Alex, from Ed. You set the bar very high as a coach, and I would agree with that. It's terrific.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, with that, okay, one of the best way to interview is you only have a few days. Oh, what is the best way to interview prep if you only have a few days of preparation time to research their pain points? Stephanie.
Well, I'll tell you what I can do. I have, if Stephanie wants to write to me, I have a sheet that says how to research the company. If she writes to me, and my address is alex@landingexpert.com, I will immediately attach it to her. And it's my pleasure to share. I'm here to share.
Okay,
so
let me just
research the company. I have specific questions. What questions do you want to get answers to? Reach out to people, but I'm happy to share this document with you. It will be very helpful.
Okay, so that was a simple answer, a simple and comprehensive answer to what could be a very daunting question, because it happens all the time. Recruiters call you, hey, they want to talk to you, day after tomorrow, and you may have stuff already scheduled to do that. So if there's a short, sweet summary of that, I'm actually going to send you an email for that document as well. That would be something I'd love to hear your perspective on.
Oh, so, absolutely. Right. You have my email. It's my pleasure. Yep. I'm here to help. I'm here to help.
No, that's great. Or I should say, yes, that's great. I'm going to leave the dialogue open. I'll turn the recording off. I'll also say that for those of you who are listening to this is all available. All the links to these calls today that have happened on every hour since 8 in the morning Eastern until 9 Eastern tonight will be available, along with a copy of my ebook that I published a couple of years ago. Actually, the ebook is a very shortened version of it called Finding God's True Purpose for Your Career. And then there's also a 20 to 30 minute conversation with me about what your career objectives are, and if I can support you in any way, that'll be great. So Alex, I want to thank you and for taking the time on relatively short notice too. And
my pleasure.
Pleasure speaking with you today. Again, thanks.